So we need to start. Okay, good day everyone. Today we'll be talking about blockchain. We'll be talking about blockchain. I don't know if you've seen well because but it's not all that good. So today we'll be talking about blockchain. It's a very important concept for me to talk about blockchain. And why should we talk about blockchain? Today we'll be talking about blockchain because blockchain is the future of financial technology, right? So today what we're going to be doing, our goal is to be able to explain blockchain in common language so everyone will be able to understand it very perfectly, okay, right? Remember, Albert Einstein once said, if you cannot explain something very simple, it means you don't actually understand it well. So our goal today is to use common language to be able to explain this principle of blockchain, right? So before doing that, in the course of study, we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency. It's very important for us to talk about cryptocurrency when talking about blockchain, right? I'm not saying cryptocurrency is blockchain. Rather, I'm saying that for us to understand blockchain well, we need to also understand the principle or need to understand what cryptocurrency is all about. But I need you to understand that blockchain is not cryptocurrency. That's the first thing you need to understand during this course of the study. Please, I want everyone to pay attention as we go across this because it's very important for us to understand the principle of blockchain. It is very important, right? So, one thing that blockchain intends to solve is the transfer of money. In this case, digital asset, cryptocurrency, right? That's how you see the relationship comes between blockchain and cryptocurrency. Are we all understanding? So, blockchain, cryptocurrency, but we are talking about blockchain. So, in this case, what then is cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency is just like our ordinary regular money, right? Like the dollars, the francs, CFA, the pounds, the yen, and so forth. But in this case, it's solely digital, right? It's solely digital. So, in the computer language, we talk about zeros and ones, right? Binary notations. So in this case, cryptocurrency is solely digital. So today we'll be talking about blockchain. Alright, so the first principle or the first thing that blockchain intends to solve is money transfer, right? Is money transfer. So today we'll be solving the problem of money transfer. It's one of the most important essential things in the society, how to transfer money from one point to other without any stress. People can do business any way they want, but I think one problem that has faced the century so much is money transfer. We are still back in this situation. That's why I said we should talk about blockchain because it's a very important concept that everyone needs to know. Right? Okay, so before talking about the problem or how blockchain intends to solve the problem of money transfer, we need to talk about how our traditional system work, right? Alright, so our normal traditional system we use to transfer money, our normal way we use to transfer money. Alright, let's just give this example, saying that you have a person in US right? You have, let's say you have a brother in the United States, in US of A, and your brother wants to transfer money to you, let's say in Cameroon, right? Your brother wants to transfer money from the US to Cameroon. In our normal way, what your brother needs to do is your brother needs to identify what we call a third trusted party. In this case, the third trusted party can be a bank, right? So it's going to identify a third trusted party. And in this case, your trusted party can be a bank, an exchange, or whatsoever, right? Once your brother identifies a third trusted party in the United States, for the third trusted party to be able to identify you in Cameroon, this is what happens. Your brother goes to the bank, he pays fees, right? He's going to pay fees. He's going to pay fees. Normally, for the bank to be able to do this transaction, it's going to take, let's say, 3 to 4 days or whatsoever. It all depends. Maybe sometimes when you're in the rural area or some stuff and you start hearing problems of network and other issues, right? It's going to take a long time. Or you can be able to see how it the same day. It all depends on the exchange you're using. But not as fast as the blockchain, right? So once your brother is able to identify a third trusted party in the United States, he's going to pay fees, right? And the third trusted party is going to take some time, let's say 3 to 4 days or more, to be able to send. Okay, so please let's write on. So after talking about all that, now we're going to be talking how blockchain can actually solve this problem, right? The problem of money transfer. How blockchain has been able to solve the problem of money transfer, right? So today we'll be explaining, and for us to be able to talk about the problem of how blockchain has been able to solve the problem of money transfer, we're going to be talking about an open ledger, right? An open ledger. We'll talk about an open ledger. We're going to be talking about a distribution ledger, right? We'll talk about a distribution ledger. We're going to be talking about the concept of miners, how miners were able to validate transaction. So we're talking about miners. We talk about the concept of miners. Talking about the concept of miners, we'll talk about blocks, how they're being distributed into blocks, right? We'll talk how they're being distributed into blocks. Now, assuming that you have 4 guys that want to do a transaction, A, B, and C. Let's use this part of the bar since we don't, our board is not all that big. So let's say there are 4 guys. We have A, B, C, and D. Right? It's 4 people who wants to do a transaction. A transaction from onset is going to start with A, right? At the moment of the beginning of the transaction is going to start with A. Let's say A has $100. A has $100 and A is willing to send $50 to B. A transfer $50 to B. A transfer $50 to B. Now, what actually happens is in the system of the blockchain, what will happen is a transaction ABC is going to be recorded, right? A transaction ABC is going to be recorded. A to B $50 has been recorded. And let's say B transfer $30. B transfer $30. B transfer $30 to D. $30 to D. The transaction is also recorded. D transfer from the point of D now has $30 in his account. So D has to transfer $25 to C, right? So C $25, right? It's been recorded. So what we have here, we just have a centralized system of transaction. But this is not our goal as blockchain, right? So because we have an open ledger here where every transaction that happen, everyone can be able to see. So what blockchain does is to be able to distribute this transaction, to make copies of this ledger so everyone can be able to have a part of this transaction, right? So the first goal that blockchain does is to remove the centralized system, right? You remember we're talking about third party. We don't want to use third party anymore, right? We don't want to use third party. We are fed up with the third party. So what we need to do now is to be able to bring a decentralized system, right? So what we're going to do now is to be able to decentralize the system. Now I would like to explain something to you guys in common language. Let's say in a common way in the countries, because I know maybe in the Western world, but I'm not insulting the less privileged countries. Okay, let's say for instance, a country like Cameroon, right? If you go to the regular police station, and you have a problem, let's say you have the problem, the commissioner of that police station has the right to say, okay, just lock him up. Do this. He can just look at you, hey, guy, you resemble a criminal. Just lock him up. Because we are using a centralized system, right? But if you go to that police station, that every member in that police station has equal powers. Everyone has equal powers. Everyone takes down records of what is happening. So if you go there, you're saying this, everybody takes down the record. Everybody takes down a record. Everybody in that police station has equal powers. That is what blockchain intends doing, and that is how blockchain works, right? So what happens here is the centralized system does not control the transaction. Each and every one of these members, A, B, C, and D, has equal powers, and they are all seeing the transaction that is happening, right? So in that point, we bring the concept of a distribution ledger, which means that after we've cancelled the transaction here in the central place, right? Which means that B is going to be having his own copy of the transaction. A, B equals $50. B, D, $30. D, C, $25. A will also be having the same copy of that transaction as well as B, C, and D. Everyone will be having his own copy of the transaction, right? Everyone keeps record of what is happening in the system, right? So this is what blockchain does. It means what we're saying is after validating the transaction, the system distributes it. Each and every one, each and every member of this has a copy of these transactions, right? So it will be very difficult to fraud each to fraud any of these transactions, right? That's why we call blockchain as the future of financial technology, because it's one of the best, in fact the best so ever technology that has successfully been able to do money transfer without any problem, without any theft or any stuff, right? Or without any delays. So now this is how the system works. You see, we will have an open ledger where everybody sees it, and then the system distributes it, right? Now, talking about the third thing, the concept of miners, or the concept of miners. Let's forget about the block issue aside. They are all implementation details. So let's talk about miners before we talk about block, right? Okay, now, assuming that A and Z, they are miners, right? Let's say A and Z, they are miners in this situation. So how do miners help? How do miners play or help in the system of the blockchain? Now, a miner is someone that dedicates his computing power to be able to solve mathematical problems, right? And validate transactions, right? Let's say you have a computer, you maybe keep your computer, okay, I want this my computer to be mining coins for me, right? Let's example Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency. I think that was the first cryptocurrency that started in way back 2008, and the white paper came out in 2009 by enormous man Satoshi Nakamoto. We're not be talking about that today, but we're talking about blockchain. But what I'm just trying to give you is a crash course for you to understand the concept of blockchain more better, right? So now let's assume that A, D, they are miners. Okay, so let's say A and D, they are miners in this situation. And I've explained to you that a miner is someone that dedicates his computing powers to be able to validate transactions, to search the private keys to validate transactions, and so forth. So a transaction can be written in the distribution ledger. Are we understanding? Right? So let's say D has a computer that he has this. And how does miners function? Miners, they are being distributed into groups, into blocks, sorry. Miners are being distributed into blocks, right? Miners are distributed into blocks. Let's say one block. One blocks can have over 10,000 or 5,000,000 computers, right? They are all spread all over the world. That's one thing. It's very difficult to corrupt the system. So because if you want to enter the system, you need to, first of all, if you want to, let's say it's impossible because you can corrupt one computer, but you're not able to corrupt the rest, right? And let's say in a block, let's say in one block, you have more than 10,000 computers. It's just an example, right? You can actually talk the amount of computers, but they are solely distributed over the world. So it's very difficult for a hacker. You will spend more energy than the amount of money you will even collect from the system. It's even impossible, right? It's impossible. So miners are being distributed into blocks. I remember I told you a block is just an implemented detail in the in the case of the study, but it's good for us to really expatiate a little bit about it so everyone can be able to understand it better, right? So miners are being distributed into blocks, right? Now, the first person, that's the first group of block that validate the transaction and look for a special key, right? And look for a special key in this situation. Let's say D C gains what we call a reward. In this case, it can be Bitcoin or any digital asset that has that blockchain. Yeah, there are so many types of blockchain. We have the Bitcoin blockchain, we have the Ethereum, multiple blockchain. I think that's one of the best blockchain, but we're going to talk about that later. But as for now, we're solely talking about blockchain. All right. So minus the other one, they have to work in competition to be able to find private keys, solving mathematical problems, algorithms, to be able to validate transactions. So the first group of miners that succeed doing this transaction will gain what we call a reward. In this case, maybe Bitcoin or whatever. It all depends on the blockchain we're talking about. That's why I said there are so many types of blockchain, right? So once a miner succeeds to look for a private key for a transaction, let's say, let's say A, right? Let's say A. Okay, let me use a red one so we cannot differentiate, so it looks clearly. So let's say A is sending money to D, right? What the miners does is, since the miners are being distributed into blocks across the globe, anywhere in the world, a miner can be in US, can be in Asia, Europe, South Africa, whatsoever, all across the world, right? So miners are being distributed into blocks across the globe. So the first group of block that will be able to validate this transaction, let's say a transaction from A to the, remember we said A was still having $50. The first group of block that will be able to validate this transaction from A to D will gain what we call a reward, right? Will gain a reward. Let's say in this case a digital asset like a cryptocurrency. In this case a cryptocurrency. So now looking at something, now let's say A wants to send $100 to C, right? Now what the miners does is, the miners are going to, using computing powers, to check if A actually owns $100, right? You see that this transaction cannot be validated because A was having, from initial, A was having $100 and he transferred $50, right? And then again he transferred $10 to D, right? So at this point you discover that this can never be a validated transaction because A does not have $100 left in his account, right? So this is how miners actually works in the system. Remember, let's just give a brief, we call it as a brief summary. Remember we talk about open ledger, right? We talk about an open place, right? We talk about the open place, we talk about a distribution ledger, how the transaction is distributed across the members A, B, C, and D. We talk about miners, the concept of miners and block, right? Now, when we're talking about the concept of miners and block, now what we're saying is, what we're saying in this case is, a miner are the ones that validate transactions, right? So I don't know if anybody has any question before we proceed. If anybody has any question or any doubt or any question he wants to ask, and then we can actually proceed on this. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, that's a good question, right? Now, what you just said is a very good question. Anybody can actually become a miner. Anybody. You can buy a computer, you just need to buy a software to be able to mine in that system that you want. You want to mine Bitcoin, you want to mine blockchain, I mean, you want to mine Ethereum, you want to mine what? There are all different types of blockchain, right? A blockchain like Bitcoin, like the way the question you asked, a blockchain that like Bitcoin does not support other digital assets apart from the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is the coin. Are you getting what I'm saying? Okay, yeah. Yeah, we can have that on Ethereum because Ethereum on Ethereum's blockchain because Ethereum is a smart chain. All right, so let's proceed. Right? If no other question, let's proceed.